In this chapter, we're going to look at some basic copywriting techniques. Now, the first tip is to focus on your product or services rather than your company name. The reason for this, if you look at a lot of websites, the home page, generally the first thing that is mentioned is the company name. So as I've mentioned a few times, my company name is Cheltenham Group. So if you look at my SEO training website, I focus on the fact that it's all about SEO training. I don't focus on the company name, which is Cheltenham Group. So as I say, you want to focus on your products, your services, and a location. You know, if people already know your company name, so in my case, if they wanted to find my company, they could type in Cheltenham Group, and they would find my sort of main company webpage, and from there they could find the various different websites that I run. So as you can see in the last bullet point there, the whole point of a website, in most cases anyway, is to attract potentially new customers who may not be familiar with your brand or your company name, but are interested in your products or your services. Now, obviously, you should use your keywords and your keyword phrases within the body text. This is kind of SEO 101. It may seem obvious, but you can check it out yourself. It's surprising how many times websites sort of leave out the obvious. You know, they might be based in a particular city or a particular suburb, but they don't actually mention that city or suburb within the pages. So it's very important you try and, include your keywords relating to your product or your service and any other specialist terms, as well as a location within the body text. The other basic SEO principle is don't keep repeating the same thing over and over. So again, in my case, if I've got a website about SEO training, I don't want to mention the word SEO training over and over again. What I can do is I can use variants. So for instance, I could use something like SEO training, SEO courses, SEO seminars, and SEO tutorials. And the other thing I can do, instead of using the word SEO, I could use the full version, which is search engine optimization. So I could have search engine optimization training, search engine optimization courses, search engine optimization seminars, and search engine optimization tutorials. So as I say, try and use similar phrases or similar words rather than the same thing over and over again. The other thing you might want to consider is using single and plural versions. As you can see in the second bullet point there, many years ago, I created a website for a school in the English town of Cheltenham. Now, when I did the research for this and worked out what people actually search for, they didn't search for Cheltenham School. What they actually searched for, the phrase they used, was schools in Cheltenham. So in a lot of cases, people using that phrase would be sort of people who are thinking of moving to Cheltenham, and they were just looking for the exact phrase, schools in Cheltenham. So that's what I optimized the website for, that particular phrase, schools in Cheltenham, because that's what people will be searching for. The other thing you can do is use different spelling versions. So again, in my case, there's two types of SEO. There's on-site SEO and there's off-site SEO. So instead of just using one version of these words within a page, if you look at my websites, I will use on-site, all one word, on space site, and the third version is on dash site. Google will notice this and it will reward me for not using the same thing over and over again. The other thing, as you've already seen now, is you can use abbreviations and the full version. So again, in my case, I could sprinkle the text with the word SEO and also mix it up with the phrase search engine optimization, because Google knows that SEO is an abbreviation of search engine optimization. So again, Google will reward me for this. Now, another mistake that you should avoid is trying to cram too many concepts into one page. So many companies, especially with their homepage, try and cram all the different alternative keywords into the one page, and that makes it very difficult for Google to figure out what the page is about. What you should do is to have lots and lots of different pages and really optimize each single page for something different. So again, in my case, I might have one page for SEO training, a different page for, say, SEO seminars, another page for maybe WordPress consultancy, and you get far better results by separating these into different pages rather than trying to cram all the ideas into one page. So again, let's take another example. Let's say you have a product and you both sell and rent it. What you might want to consider is having one page that talks about renting your product and another page that talks about selling your product. Again, in the same way, let's say you're interested in promoting your products or your services across many different cities, then within reason, and I do stress that, you can set up different pages catering for different locations. Don't overdo this because Google might regard these as landing pages. And as always, if you go back to the Google Webmaster Guidelines, it specifically mentions landing pages and it says basically don't overdo it, use with caution. So what you don't want, and this is something I've seen quite a few times, is to have literally hundreds and hundreds of different pages, and really the only difference between each of the pages is the basic text is the same, but they mention a different city, so one or a different suburb. So for instance, just locally here in Perth, I've seen some websites where literally there's one page for just about every single suburb, and virtually all the content is the same apart from the name of the suburb, and that would be viewed as very obvious spam from Google's point of view. So don't do that. Now the other thing is, where do you locate your keywords? Well, it's very important that you sort of straight off the bat, as it were, right at the top of the page, you go straight in and mention your keyword phrase. What you don't want is the first paragraph that's long and flowery and says, oh, hello, welcome to our website and blah, blah, blah. What you want is the first line that basically says clearly and succinctly what you do and maybe where you are. The other area that's important is the area right at the bottom of the page. So again, try and use a similar sort of phrase at the bottom of the page, but again, try and use a different keyword phrase, in both sections. Don't just repeat yourself over and over. Now, keyword density just simply refers to the percentage of times a particular phrase or keyword is displayed within the web page compared to the total number of words. So it's the keyword density of a particular phrase on that page. As always, don't overdo this. If you do overdo it, it's what's called keyword stuffing, and Google takes a very, very dim view of that. So there's no set rule here, but most SEO people would say you want a keyword density of somewhere between 1 and an absolute maximum, say 5%. Certainly no more than that. Now, the keyword frequency just simply refers to the number of times a keyword or phrase is used within a single web page. If the keyword is repeated too often within a single page, Google could penalize you for attempts to spam the search engine. So, don't repeat the same phrase too many times. Use different phrases maybe. As I say, in my case, I could use the word training, seminars, workshops, different words but kind of mean the same thing. So keyword stuffing basically just means overusing keywords and phrases within a single page. Google specifically mentions keyword stuffing in the Google Webmaster Guidelines, so do it at your peril basically. Now finally, the number of words on a page. A lot of people will argue about this, but Google basically likes text, and the more text the better. So if somehow you can get maybe 500 well-written words on a page rather than just say 50 words, Google will like this because Google will understand text and Google can analyze the text, figure out what the page is about, and you get rewarded. As it says in the last bullet point there, most websites do not have nearly enough text on the actual pages.